So today we'll start off with the chapter transport, which is made up of two parts. One of them is transport in plants and one of them is transport in animals. So what are the requirements for transport system? Why do we need a transport system? In order for any organism to function properly, it needs to exchange substances such as food molecules and waste products between itself and its environment. This exchange of substances occurs across the cell membrane, where there are three transport processes that living organisms use for exchange, which are diffusion, osmosis, and active transport.
Active transport.
Unicellular organisms like amoeba have a very large surface areas in comparison to their volumes. This means that the distance between the surface of the organism to its center is very small, and as a result, unicellular organisms do not need to have a specialist exchange services. Only multicellular organisms need a huge transport system so they can, transport those substances and gases and products and reactants. So all of the needs of an organism can be met. Unicellular don't need an efficient transport system because unicellular organisms are so small, such as amoeba, they don't even require transport systems due to the large surface area to volume ratio. In the same area, oxygen can also come in the same area, carbon dioxide can also leave. Plus, they have such a small diffusion distance that they don't require a transport system. But a multicellular organism, for example, plants and animals, they have relatively small surface areas in comparison to their volume, which means that the distance between the surface of the organism to its center is relatively long. As diffusion, osmosis, and active transport cannot occur at sufficient rate to meet the needs of the organism, larger organisms have gas exchange surfaces and proper transport surfaces as well. If we talk about animals, exchange surfaces in animals include the lungs and alveoli for the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide. Then we have the small intestine and villi for the absorption of digested food. We have transport system in mammals, which include the blood and circulatory system. So all the necessary substances can be transported around the body. If we talk about
Right.
plants, we have the roots and root hair, which absorb water and different mineral ions from the soil. We have the leaves and stomata systems for gas exchange of oxygen produced in photosynthesis, and the carbon dioxide is taken in for photosynthesis as well. Transport system in plant also include two types. We have the xylem transport system and we have the phloem transport system. Xylem is responsible for the movement of water and mineral ions. Phloem moves the sugars and amino acids from the source to the sink as well. For example, this is one of the adaptation where we have a root hair cell in plants. And can you tell me how is this root hair cell adapted to its function?
To absorb as much water as possible
I know, but how is it adapted to its function?
by having a larger surface area.
How does it have a larger surface area?
By stretching out,
What is stretching out? It doesn't stretch out.
they
Structure is structure, yes, it's not stretching out.
Mhm.
It's a root hair which penetrates through the soil. Got it?
Right.
Then we have the instantaneous wall villi as well, which have so many foldings that they increase the surface area for absorption as well. Xylem in plants is for the transport of water and mineral ions from roots to shoots, whereas phloem are there for the sugars and amino acids from the source to sink as well. And if we talk about animals, we have a circulatory system for the transport of blood, where the blood carries oxygen as well, glucose, carbon dioxide, water, and all of the waste products around the body as well. So if we talk about flowering plants have a vascular bundle. Vascular bundle is made up of what? A xylem and a phloem. The roots, stem, and leaves form a plant organ system for the transport of substances around the plant. Plants also possess two specialist transport vessels called the xylem and phloem, and the xylem and phloem are arranged throughout the root, stem, leaves in groups called vascular bundles. Xylem vessels are responsible for the transport of water and minerals from the roots to the stem and leaves. And xylem has some key features as well. For example, it is composed of dead cell, which forms hollow tubes, which means maximum amount of water can travel between the xylem vessels. They are strengthened by lignin and are also adapted for the transport of water in a continuous transpiration stream. Phloem vessels transport food materials, mainly sucrose and amino acids made by the plants from photosynthesizing leaves to the non-photosynthesizing regions in the roots and stem. So can you tell me what is the function of xylem and phloem in very much detail? That what do they transport and from where to where do they transport that thing? Tell me.
So xylem transport water and are arranged throughout the root, and stems and leaves in the group, which are they are called vascular bundles. And the phloem, the both are arranged throughout the root, and phloem transports food. Uh,
Phloem transports food from where to where?
uh, f-
Yes.
from the stems to the no, from the leaf to the stems,
What does phloem transport?
food.
Where is food produced?
In the leaves,
So it would be transported from the leaves to?
in the roots.
Exactly. This means that phloem's movement can be in any direction around the plant, from roots to leaves to stem to roots, from leaves to stem, from leaves to roots, all directional. Lekin xylem is only one-way flow, from roots
Yes,
to the leaves.
up to these leaves.
The phloem has structural features different to the xylem, where the cells are living cells and they are not hollow. Substances move from cell to cell through pores in the end walls of each cell as well. So you can see that xylem vessels are completely hollow and they are only one directional. Their walls are thick with lignin, whereas phloem can flow in both of the directions. It has some end walls in between, and those end walls have pores. They are not hollow. Xylems are completely hollow and they have thin walls as well. But if you look at a plant tissue cross section, this vascular bundle is something like this. Okay, if we talk about stems, this is what the vascular bundles look like. This is the xylem, this is the phloem. And in roots, it looks something like this. Inside the roots, the middle one is going to be the xylem, and the rest of them are going to be phloem. This is a cross sectional of a stem where you can see the vascular bundle, and this is how you can see the vascular bundles in the roots as well.
Right.
Here you can see this is the stem cross section of the stem, and this is the cross section of the root that I have already shown you over here, how to identify xylem and phloem. So how does the water move through the plants? It is absorbed from the soil to the root hair cells. From the root hair cells, it is sent to the cortex cell, and from the cortex cells, it is loaded into the xylem. So the xylem can send it up the stems and leaves for photosynthesis. Root hair cells are adopted for the efficient uptake of water by osmosis and mineral ions by active transport. Root hairs are the single-celled extensions of epidermis cells in the roots. They grow between soil particles and absorb water and minerals from the soil as well. Root hairs increase the surface area to volume ratio significantly. This increases the rate of absorption of mineral ions by active transport, and the high proportion of dissolved minerals and sugars in the cytoplasm give it a low water potential, and the water moves into the root hair cells by osmosis. So water travels by osmosis into the root hair cells, and minerals travel by active transport into the root hair cells. Because root hair cells are adopted with having a very large surface area, they have
Right.
a vacuole, a cytoplasm, a nucleus that controls activities, mitochondria that provides ATP for
It,
active transport as well. Ribosomes is also there, a cell wall provides its strength as well, and everything else. Because roots are something like this. Roots are going to absorb the water inside this xylem, the blue region. The structure of roots specifically allows it to maximize the absorption of water by osmosis and mineral ions by active transport. You can see the large surface area provided by the root hair cells because the root hairs have actually penetrated into the soil to have maximum absorption. So first, if we talk about the soil to root hair cells, water moves by osmosis from a region of higher water potential to a region of
to a
low
region
water
of lower.
through the root cortex and into the xylem vessels. पहले उसने soil से root hair cell में आना है, root hair cell to these cortex cell, and from cortex cells into the xylem.
Xylem.
Once the water gets into the xylem, it is carried up by the leaves where it enters the mesophyll cells. So the pathway is soil to root hair cell to root cortex cell to xylem and then to the leaf mesophyll cells where the water is needed for photosynthesis. Got it?
Yep.
So we have already discussed that the soil particles have a higher water potential, the root hairs has a lower water potential. So osmosis takes place down the concentration gradient into the roots, into the cortex cell, and then loaded into the xylem. The pathway can be investigated by placing a plant into a beaker of water that has stain added to it. After a few hours, you can see that the leaves of celery turning the same color as the dyed water, proving that the water is taken up by the celery as well. And you would see that if you dip a celery, ठीक है आप celery को dip कर दो, only some parts would have the color. And this color proves that only some parts are xylem, the rest of them which don't have the color, they would be what? Phloem. Only the ones
Right.
having the color dye would be xylem, so you can investigate this as well. What is transpiration? Can you tell me?
Transpiration is the loss of when you lose water vapor from the plants, which comes on the ground level, like leaves, stems, and flowers. And it happens through evaporation of water at the surface area.
Transportation in plants. In the previous section, we have learnt about transportation in human beings. Now, let us learn transportation in plants. As we have discussed earlier, plants prepare their own food using simple compound inorganic sources such as CO2, water, along with some raw materials, and photosynthesize energy in the presence of sunlight and stored in the chlorophyll of leaves. The plants require raw materials like soil, nitrogen, phosphorus, and other minerals to build their bodies. The plants absorb raw materials from soil with the help of roots, which are in contact with the soil. If distance between soil, root, and chlorophyll is small, energy needed is less, and raw materials can easily diffuse into all parts of plant body. If distance between soil, root, and chlorophyll is large, it needs much energy and raw materials cannot diffuse easily. In such cases, a proper system of transportation is essential. Example, tall trees. The energy requirement for transportation also varies according to plant structure. As plants do not move and plant bodies have large dead cells in many tissue, as a result, plants have low energy needs and use slow transport system. In case of tall plants, distance over transport system is large. Why do plants need a transport system? Plants need water, mineral salts, and raw materials for photosynthesis in order to survive. The water and mineral salts from soil is transported into plants through roots. These can only be transported through the water carrying tubes in the stem, also known as xylem. Products of photosynthesis prepared in the leaves are to be transported to the other parts of plants. This can only be transported by the food-carrying tubes, also known as phloem. Transport of water. In xylem, tissue vessels and tracheids are the two types of transport tissue in plants. Both vessels and tracheids consist of thick cell walls. Tracheids are single-celled, shorter in length, whereas vessels are several-celled and much longer than tracheids. In xylem, vessels and tracheids of root stem and leaves are interconnected to facilitate continuous water conduction system to all parts of plant. The water transport upwards against force of gravity with the help of xylem vessels. In the movement of water, upwards plants have two types of strategies. Absorption of water. As the xylem vessels, cells of root, are in contact with soil, it actively absorbs the water ions. When root is in contact with the soil, soil has more concentration of water and root has less concentration. Obviously, a difference in concentration of ions is present in between the root and soil. To balance the difference in water ions between root and soil, water moves into root, which means a steadily or continuous movement of water into xylem of roots, which creates column of water steadily pushing upwards. In xylem, the flow of water is bulk flow, and negative pressure facilitates movement of water and minerals into roots. Transpiration of water. Transpiration.
So now we'll discuss transpiration and then watch this part of the video as well. What is
Okay.
transpiration? Transpiration is defined as the loss of water vapor from the parts of the plant that are above the ground. Loss of water occurs through evaporation of water at the surfaces of spongy mesophyll cells, followed by the diffusion of water vapor through the stomata. The many interconnecting air spaces between the mesophyll cells and the stomata creates a large surface area, which means that evaporation can happen rapidly when the stomata are open. Now, whenever stomata are open, the water can diffuse in as well and diffuse out as well, depending on what has to happen. Now, inside we have a higher water potential gradient, but then the surrounding air, we have a low water potential. So all of the water is going to move out because when the palisade mesophyll cells carry out photosynthesis, what happens? They produce water as well. Now this water will be lost from the palisade mesophills into which cells? Which cells would the water be transported to from palisade mesophyll cells?
To which two?
Palisade
Uh,
mesophyll cells produce water by photosynthesis, right?
yep. No,
Once they
by
produce water,
photosynthesis,
where, yes,
doesn't they create energy by photosynthesis?
yeah, yeah, they do create energy, they do create food, but there's a lot of water vapors over here. Water vapors भी तो है ना?
Mm-hmm.
ठीक है? So where are all those water vapors going to go?
To the spongy mesophyll
Between the air spaces of them, and then they are going to diffuse out through the stomata.
leaves. So
Stomata guard cells. Evaporation of water molecules from the surface of mesophyll cells to the air space. Diffusion of water vapor out of the stomata when there is a concentration gradient. Water moves through the xylem vessels in the continuous transpiration stream from the roots to the leaves via the stem to replace the water that has been lost. Now, why does water travel up? Because water has been lost from the leaves, which means now up there there's a lower water potential, down there there's a higher water potential. So from the roots the water is now going to move up again because ऊपर transpiration की वजह से loss हो जाएगा पानी का. So you have to cover up that loss as well. Got it?
right.
There are two forces that ensure that water goes up in an unbroken column. Cohesion is the attraction between water molecules. Adhesion is the attraction between the water molecules and the walls of xylem. Transpiration produces tension or pulls on the water in the xylem vessels. If the rate of transpiration from the leaves increases, water molecules are pulled up by the xylem vessels quicker. So here you can see an unbroken flow of column is going over here. When the water is lost from the leaf into the air, there is a lower water potential over here now, and there's a higher water potential in the cortex cell. So that is why water is going to move up. And when the water is emptied from here, now there's a lower water potential here and a higher water potential in soil. So more water would be absorbed from the soil into the cortex cell. And this keeps on going and going, ensuring that there's an unbroken continuous process taking place again and again. So transpiration has several functions in plants: transporting mineral ions, providing water to keep the cells turgid, providing water to leave for photosynthesis, and also keeping the keeping the leaves cool. Got it?
Okay.
There are also several environmental conditions which have an impact on the rate of transpiration. Air movement, humidity, temperature, and light
Light
intensity.
intensity.
When air movement is high, obviously a more airflow would, remove more water vapor from the plants as well. High humidity means that there's already a high water potential outside. ठीक है?
So
That means there would be less rate of transpiration if the humidity is high. If light
yes.
intensity is high, guard cells would open and more water would be lost. Temperature high means that particles will have more kinetic energy, speed would increase, they would evaporate faster and diffuse faster at lower temperatures as well. So when air movement increases, light intensity increases and temperature increases, rate of transpiration also increases. But when humidity increases, rate of transpiration decreases. Got it?
Okay.
Is nothing but of evaporation of water molecules from stomata of leaves into atmosphere. Stomata are the guard cells. In definition, transpiration is defined as the loss of water in the form of vapor from the aerial parts of the plant is known as transpiration. The loss of water molecules or evaporation of water molecules through leaves creates suction or root pressure, pulls water upwards through xylem cells of root. Thus, the losses of water through stomata of leaves are replaced by suction of water through xylem vessels in the leaf. It also helps in temperature regulation. During the day, transpiration helps in conduction of water through xylem vessels and maintains balance of ions between root and soil. During nights, root pressure occurs due to difference in concentration of active ions between root and soil, help in conduction of water. Phloem. Phloem is another conducting tissue in the transport of foods. The structure of phloem consists of conducting cells called sieve elements, which are thick, circular, and elongated cells. The food that is synthesized in photosynthesis are soluble products like sucrose and nutrients, carbohydrates, etc., are transported through phloem in upward and downward directions to all parts of plant. The transport of soluble products of photosynthesis is called translocation. It can be done by using the energy in the form ATP, adenosine triphosphate, produced by photosynthesis. Phloem also transports amino acids and other substances. These are especially transported to fruits and seeds for storage, and food transported to roots for the requirement of energy in the process of absorption of water from soil to roots. Sucrose is transferred into phloem by using energy from ATP molecules, leads to increase the osmotic pressure of the tissues, and water moves into phloem and materials in the phloem to tissues which have less pressure. For example, in the spring, sugar stored in root or stem tissue would be transported to the buds which need energy to grow.
And welcome back to this US Open.
So is it clear?
Yep, I think I get it now.
What can be the different practical investigations that can tell you how are the different factors affecting transpiration? Any example?
I guess you could put one in complete darkness and one in sunlight,
ठीक है, good.
and
That is
and you
due to
can
the light intensity, exactly.
yes, you can put one outside where it's
Hmm.
wind and one inside.
Hmm.
Uh, that's for air, wind.
Good.
You can do other things like temperature. Put one in a higher room temperature
Hmm.
and warmer place, and one in a colder place to see how temperature varies.
How will you check? Rate.
Of
How will you see which one is higher, which one is lower rate of transpiration? What are you measuring?
Air bubbles.
Of what? Which gas?
Air.
Which gas? Gas का name क्या है?
O2.
Exactly. We can investigate the effect of different environmental conditions such as temperature, humidity, light intensity, and wind movement on the rate of transpiration using a piece of apparatus called a photometer. There are two types of photometer. A mass photometer measures a change in mass of plant as a measure of the amount of water that has evaporated from leaves and stem. A bubble photometer measures the uptake of water by a stem as a measure of the amount of water that is being lost by evaporation, consequently pulling up the water from the stem to replace it as well. Photometer, you can see the movement of this air bubble. Okay. If transpiration occurs from here and there's a pull from here, this air bubble would also move to the left. So you need a photometer, a timer, a lamp, a ruler, and a plant for this investigation. Cut a chute underwater to prevent air entering the xylem and place in the tube. Set up the apparatus. Dry the leaves of the chute. Wet the leaves will affect the results. Remove the capillary tube. Set a lamp 10 centimeter from the leaf and allow the plant to adapt to the new environment for 5 minutes. Record the starting location of the air bubble. Leave it for 30 minutes. Record the end location of the air bubble. Change the light intensity. Reset the bubble by opening the tab below for reservoir. Repeat the experiment and calculate the rate of transpiration by dividing the distance the bubble traveled by the time period in both of them. You have to see the, not count the air bubbles, see the distance traveled by the air bubble. Got it?
Right.
The further the bubble travels in the same time period, the faster transpiration is occurring and vice versa. This is the kind of a apparatus that you will set up. Record the distance of air bubble at the start of the experiment, which is this one. Light intensity is 20, let's say. And at the end of the experiment, it moved this much. Now change the light intensity, make it double, 40. Now the air bubble might move this much till here. Then compare both of them and see how has the because जितनी यहाँ से transpiration की वजह से loss of water होगा, greater would be the pull from this side, more the bubble would move to the left as well. So leave it for a set period of time, record the end location of the bubble plus calculate the distance traveled, reset the air bubble and then repeat the experiment after changing the factor 2 to 3 times आप कर सकते हो. Now this was for checking the light intensity. You can also add the effect of wind by using what? Hair dryer. Spray water if you want to add humidity, and you can also change the temperature as well in the same experiment. So the same
Yeah.
experiment can be done. Only replace the light intensity with a hair dryer or replace it with some water bowl or something for humidity, but the whole experiment would be the same, and don't include the counting the number of bubbles thingy. Always write the photometer one. The same copy paste answer should be there. Only change this lamp. If you are asked for light intensity, write this one. If you're asked for wind effect, use a hair dryer over here. Other than that,
Right.
everything, every line is the same. Got it?
Okay.
So as light intensity increases, the rate of transpiration increases, and this is also shown by the bubble moving at a greater distance in the 30-minute time period when the lamp was placed closer to the leaf. Transpiration rate increases with light intensity because more stomata tend to be open in bright light in order to maximize photosynthesis. The more stomata that are open, the more water can be lost by evaporation, and the diffusion through the stomatal pores would increase as well. Sometimes there can be limitations. For example, the photometer equipment has a leak. So you have to ensure that all of the equipment fits together tightly. Another problem can be that plant cutting has a blockage. So cut the stem underwater so no air bubbles enter the xylem. Sometimes the photometer has shown no change. Okay? So you should ensure that the cuttings are fresh. They're not old pieces of plants. Got it?
Yeah, yeah.
So what are we changing? Light intensity. What are the
Right.
organism? They are the leaves of the same size. We will repeat the
Yes.
investigation. We will measure the distance shared by bubble. In how much time? That is your measurement
Uh,
tool. Okay.
yes, 30 minutes.
Exactly. And what are you going to keep the same? If you are measuring light
Temp
intensity, then keep
yeah, we
all
keep
other
temperature,
three.
wind, and
Exactly.
humidity.
And what if you are measuring wind
Then you would keep light intensity the same.
and temperature and humidity? Got it?
Yeah.
And that is all for the half of the chapter is done. Transport and plants has been completed. Half chapter is done today. Half of the chapter will be done in tomorrow's class, and transport chapter would also be completed.